lads, welcome back to what is already episode number 24, I believe, of the toonTALK podcast brought to you by Magpie 24/7. Unfortunately, today we have no guest. Some issues came up. Unfortunately, those things can happen, so it will just be me. But I've also got about 15 minutes of Kyle's review of last week's results, which were largely positive. I mean, let's get straight into it without any further ado. With the Tottenham result, because that was the first result of this game week. This was in the Premier League where we did beat Spurs 2-1 at their own stadium, which for Spurs still means they remain on two home wins all season against Burnley and Brentford. That is, so that's shocking form for from them. We've also seen Thomas Frank get sacked on the back of losing against Newcastle. And on the other hand, it for us it is a massively positive and massively needed result. We spent some time in this Spurs game on equal ground, but eventually, right before halftime, Malik Thiaw took the lead. We took the lead a bit earlier than that through Joe Willock, who made a fantastic run and got a brilliant through ball from Lewis Hall. The kind of through balls I'd like to see us utilize more often because of the pace we have up front. But let's also be honest, a lot of Premier League defenses are just too smart and too tight to run those through balls through them. But Joe Willock got through them, scored. Unfortunately, he was offside by a hair. And I mean, we might all complain about VAR, but when we get onto the Aston Villa game, that's a pretty strong case in the opposite direction, shall we say. But for now, let's just remain within the Newcastle Tottenham game. Joe Willock got an actually pretty low match rating, which I believe is very unfair because I think he played a fantastic game. I think a lot of our players played a fantastic game with a lot of energy in the front line as well. Harvey Barnes, Gordon, and Anthony Elanga started together in the front line. Willock, Bruno Guimaraes, and Ramsey made up the midfield. Trippier, Thiaw, Botman, and Byrne in the back with Nick Pope in goal. Again, this was the lineup against Tottenham, and a lineup I was pretty okay with, apart from the fact that Gordon was playing striker yet again. This time, I didn't think he played badly at all. He showed a lot of intensity. He pressured the back line of Spurs more than often enough for me to be happy with that performance. But when you spend more than £100 million on centre forwards, like we've discussed plenty of times on this podcast, it's not it's not a bad idea to be wanting them to start, I believe. But again, Gordon started. He provided a lot by starting in that striker role, provided a lot of energy mostly because I do think we lack a focal point when he is playing in that striker role. But again, like I said, Willock scored. That goal got ruled out due to offside, but the determination to grab the lead right before halftime was still there. And a couple of minutes later, Malik Thiaw gets a really, really big opportunity, really nice save, but he is not only the quickest to react to it, but also the most eager to get to the ball, which means he can toe poke it in a pretty much open net and set us 1-0 up right before halftime. A much needed goal when in the grand scheme of our season, a much needed goal in the context of this game, and in my opinion, a very big goal, which makes it 4 goals for Malik Thiaw this season already. Our undisputed best summer signing, it has to be said. Even with one or two not necessarily worrying performances, because I'm not worried at all, but performances that show that maybe we should be looking to get Malik Thiaw a rest in the near future. Yeah, he's been bloody brilliant pretty much all season for us. When it comes to the Tottenham Hotspur 11, though, I thought Xavi Simons and Pap Matar Sarr played pretty well for them. But apart from that, Mickey van de Ven was a tough defender for us to contend with, because if he wasn't playing, this match could have been 5-1 instead of 2-1. Yes, it ended 2-1 in the second half. Archie Gray equalized for Tottenham Hotspur, equalizing after, let's say, 5 to 10 minutes of sustained pressure, which was definitely there, and we were suffering a little bit. But when Tottenham do eventually make that equalizer, we immediately grab the game by the scruff of the neck yet again, and a fantastically important goal to grab the lead yet again. A first Newcastle goal for Jacob Ramsey. And in my opinion, Jacob Ramsey has had a fantastic week. He's come in for a lot of scrutiny, rightly so, probably because of, yeah, a lack of high level performances when we paid close to £50 million for him. But he is showing those performance levels right now. And in a time where we definitely need it, because in this game, Sandro Tonali is rested. In the Aston Villa game, as we will get on to, Bruno Guimaraes didn't play, as he won't be playing in the near future for us. I mean, 8 to 10 weeks out injured. Let's for a quick second talk about that fact. Bruno Guimaraes out injured is devastating. That is the one and only piece of bad news we've had all week, but it's really, really bad. Bruno Guimaraes is such an important player for us, and I'm really happy to see that yesterday we got the result against a strong Aston Villa. Okay, not the strongest possible Aston Villa side, but players like Morgan Rogers were still starting for them, so it definitely wasn't a weak team, and we still came out on top without Bruno. So that's a positive, but missing Bruno never, never really is. We didn't have to miss him in this Spurs result, but he eventually got subs pretty late on in the game, and it is this game that has meant he sustained the injury he has. So yeah, it is a very big worry to see him go out, especially from a creative standpoint. But it does help when Jacob Ramsey is finally starting to find some form. I thought he showed a lot of intent in the Spurs game, a lot of energy. He wanted to get on the ball in dangerous areas. He dribbled out of tight spaces pretty well, which is something I also wanted to see from him because we don't necessarily have too many other midfielders who do so. So that's all very, very positive. Some negatives from the Spurs game. I thought again we struggled when actually needing a goal in the first half. We got it pretty late on, whilst genuinely, genuinely dominating Tottenham. We could have scored three or four by the time we were 1-0 up. So that's again a worry for the summer. But it's also such a much needed result because, I mean, last week we even talked about it on the podcast. Eddie Howe is under a bit of pressure. Maybe not necessarily by the board, but definitely by some online Newcastle United fans. Some fans think the other fans who want Eddie Howe to remain at the club are happy clappers. I don't agree with that at all. I think Eddie Howe, on the one hand, has done more than enough to show that he is the one to pull us through this difficult patch, through such a difficult period like this one. And also, I think we laid too much responsibility at his feet over the summer when we didn't have a CEO in place, when we didn't have a director of football in place. Everything about squad recruitment, about planning for the future, came at the feet of Eddie Howe, and I don't think that's a healthy way to run your football club at all. So it is a very, very big positive for us that we are moving away from that by appointing the likes of David Hopkinson, for example. So I am willing to wait and see for the next transfer window to see if we do actually make the signings we need to improve the squad and if Eddie Howe can finally start to solely focus on the football we are playing again, because I think that would positively benefit any one of us. And I also just think Eddie Howe is definitely the best British manager out there, probably the best, or maybe the best British manager of all time, but most definitely the best possible candidate for us at this moment in time. In the summer, that might be a different story, but also if he manages to get us back on track, finish in a Europa League, Conference League spot, because I do think Champions League is going to prove difficult, and maybe even win us an FA Cup, as we will get onto because we performed pretty strongly in that particular FA Cup, then why wouldn't you keep Eddie Howe around? I mean, I think there's definitely a case to be made for keeping him around anyway because of how much the players like him and how well he has done for us so far. But again, like I said, a lot of Newcastle fans, I think the online Newcastle fans maybe do want to see him go. So If he does go, then that's a completely different conversation on who should be his replacement. But I think that's a bridge we need to cross when we get to it. For now, again, on the Tottenham result, I think very, very positive, a much needed 3 points. And if we now have a look at the Premier League table, where we, yes, indeed, are facing Manchester City, I believe, in the next game week, which is a very, very tough away day. I mean, it's about as tough as an away day as it can possibly get, despite the fact that it's probably going to be pretty much empty yet again, like it was for the EFL Cup semi final. And City fans, you might be annoyed at me saying that, but you can't deny it. It was pretty empty for a Cup semi final, which is, yeah, pretty sad in my opinion. But back on the Premier League, we are sat in 10th right now, one place above the scum w- thanks to goal difference. We have a goal difference of 0. They have a goal difference of -3. And it looks to me like we need the points to, or I mean, in any case, you'd need the points to climb the table. But right now, Bournemouth and Everton are only 1 point in front of us, and then there's Brentford, who are 3 points in front. So it's probably the seventh position which we will need to be aiming for. But seventh could very well be Europa League football if no team that hasn't qualified for Europe wins. I mean, the Carabao Cup isn't possible because that's going to be won by either City or Arsenal, who both have Champions League football. So if we finish eighth or seventh, I think that would be pretty good. Eighth would be Conference League football in that case. Seventh would be Europa League football, unless a team without European qualification wins the FA Cup. I would love to be the ones to win the FA Cup, by the way. We'll get onto the FA Cup. But those are still some pretty realistic goals, and I definitely believe that Eddie Howe can get us there. I also think it will help us that we have a pretty, let's say, nice running at the end of the season. I think on the last game week we go away to Craven Cottage. The second to last game week we face West Ham at St James's Park, and the week before that we go away to Nottingham Forest. I think it's only the week before that one that we face Brighton, and then the week before that one, we face Arsenal. So Arsenal is pretty much our last difficult fixture. And then we have about 4 or 5 actually winnable fixtures to get us over the line in the end. So European qualification not only is still very much possible, but should absolutely still be our goal. But winning away at Manchester City is not an easy fixture to help us get there. So that's a pretty annoying one. But I do want to keep positive, and I do believe that this Tottenham game was a lot to build from. But also, the next game, which we will now get onto, is the Aston Villa game. So on Saturday, the last game, or not the last game, the second to last game of the day when it came to the FA Cup, fifth round, fourth round. I genuinely don't know which round it was. Either way, we beat Aston Villa 3-1 at their own ground. Now, let's have it right. This is a really, really impressive result. I'm going to talk about the result firstly, and then we're talking about the elephant in the room called Chris Kavanagh. Um, Aston Villa, they weren't good in this game. They had a pretty makeshift starting 11, just the same as we did, because they are struggling with injuries a lot as well this season. But we genuinely played a pretty makeshift starting 11 as well, or at least a very experimental starting 11. Yes, the backline was still Hall, Bird, excuse me. The backline was still Hall, Burn, Chow, Trippier, and this time it was Ramsdale in the goal. JJ Ramsey and Sandro Tonali played in front of that backline with Murphy, Voltemade, and Barnes in attack, and William Osula all the way in the striker role. So, yes, Nick Voltemade yet again playing in the number 10 role, and in my opinion, making a very, very big impact in that number 10 role, just like he did off of the bench against Tottenham, which, yes, I did forgot to mention, but I have mentioned it now. And the Aston Villa game could not have gotten off to a worse start for us when, in the 14th minute, A pretty nifty set piece from Aston Villa saw Tammy Abraham take the lead, but then we saw one of the first controversial, let's not call them decisions, let's call them brainless moments from the linesman, because not only was Tammy Abraham standing pretty much a meter offside, the linesman did not see it, and the goal stood because FA Cup doesn't have VAR at this stage. I'm gonna be honest, this was disgraceful officiating, especially from the linesman, because at the end of the day, there's not necessarily too much a referee on the field can do when his linesman is letting him down like that. At a certain point in the second half, it felt like anyone could do anything because the referee had lost control of this game because he was on his own. He had no support at all from his linesman, from his second officials, or yeah, I forgot what they are called. Anyway, disgraceful decision to let that goal stand, but it wasn't done there. Uh, I mean, I say a couple of minutes later, I'd say about 20 minutes later, Luca Digne with a horror tackle on Jacob Murphy's ankle. The fact that the referee, who was stood close enough, did not see that that was a straight red card is pretty disgraceful for me, and for me is his biggest mistake of the game, the one which he should have seen, not the linesman. But again, Aston Villa get away with one. They don't see red for Luca Digne. They attack our goal. We try to counterattack with a long ball, which immediately sends through Harvey Barnes, and Marco Bizot comes out with a horror tackle of his own. He does get sent off straight away. For some reason, he not only complains, but he then goes and checks the images or the footage on the sidelines, which to me just shows you're a moron. Because I mean, if you do such an unbelievably dangerous tackle, it doesn't matter whether or not you're the last man in that scenario, because Harvey Barnes could have genuinely been really, really hurt from that tackle, and he had no intention to play the ball at all in that instance. So the fact that he felt like he was in the right there and he was going to check the footage to show he was in the right felt pretty disgraceful to me. I mean, you're a professional footballer. You know this is a red card. You know that was a brainless moment from you. But he does get sent off. Dibu Martinez comes on, and halftime approaches. After halftime, we completely dominate this game. One thing I do want to say, yes, we dominated this game from a chance creation point of view, but also from a scoreline point of view. But the passing in this game was really, really sloppy. And I mean, really sloppy. We could have genuinely won 5-6-1 in the second half if our passing was anywhere near as accurate as it normally is. But it was really, really weird to see. I think it had something to do with Aston Villa's pitch or maybe the rainfall from that day. But either way, passes were consistently overhit, consistently not towards the teammate that was aimed at. It was really, really strange. But in the 63rd minute, we eventually equalized through yet another, yes, you believe it, yet another controversial moment. We go on the attack. We want to cross the ball into the opposition's box when Luca Digne handles the ball so unbelievably clearly in the box. I mean, it is genuinely not missable that he is standing in the box, and still the same linesman who gave the Tammy Abraham goal closed his eyes yet again, the bed, shed the bed yet again, and he decided this should have been a free kick, not a penalty, which is a genuinely disgraceful decision. This game shows you that we, firstly as a fan base, but also the officials, just can't handle not having VAR at this moment in time, despite all of the troubles of VAR. But I think when it comes to people's complaints about a system like VAR, I think the problem is the fact that we interpret it like video assistant referee now means that every officiating decision has to be made perfectly, and fouls committed by referees aren't possible anymore. Whereas it's not an automated system, it is still people looking at footage and interpreting footage, so there is still a margin for error. I think we just have to accept that, and that's the only way forward with when it comes to VAR. Yes, there will be still made some pretty disgraceful decisions probably, and we're going to complain about those decisions, but those decisions should in theory be much more far and few in between when VAR is still in place than when it's out. Because I mean, this Villa game, this referee is really, really lucky that Newcastle eventually do go on and win this game pretty deservedly so. Because if they hadn't, and the horrifying officiating from this game would have cost us the next round in the FA Cup, then I mean there would have probably been hell to pay. But we did get the free kick instead of the penalty, and as if it was written in stars, as if it was the most justified action that could have probably happened there, through a deflection, Sandro Tonali scores the equalizer from that free kick, and 13 minutes later, that same Italian stallion, Sandro Tonali, with a beautiful strike into the left bottom corner from outside of the box to grab the lead away at Villa Park. And at that moment in time, I don't think anyone thought that Newcastle were still going to give this lead away. Nick Voltemade did score the 3-1 and the settler for us in the 88th minute, after, on the one hand, some good pressure for us, but also some really suspect defending and playing out from the back from Aston Villa. They just could not cope with that pressure. So a really, really nice and a really important win for us in the FA Cup, which is all we can ask for, especially when we have drawn someone like Aston Villa and have now kicked out Aston Villa. This was the first time since, I think, the 50s, 51, 52, if I'm not mistaken, where Newcastle have knocked Aston Villa out of the FA Cup. So a pretty historic game in that sense, but also we can just be really, really proud of this performance. I think Ramsey was pretty good yet again, with some great energy yet again, and a lot of different players, a lot of players who I didn't even think would start this game. I thought maybe Trippier or Lewis Hall be given a rest again. Maybe Harvey Barnes would have been given a rest, although Anthony Gordon had only just been back from injury and made quite a positive impact off of the bench. And then there's William Osula, who I was really happy to see get a game. And yet again, Nick Voltemade is showing that the number 10 role is probably a lot more suited to him than being our lone striker. So, a lot of positives to take away from this game. I am looking forward to the next round of the FA Cup. And everybody at home, please let us know, can Newcastle United actually go on to win the FA Cup? Now, the last thing I want to talk about with you for today is Karabakh. We are facing Karabakh in the Champions League, firstly on Wednesday, then afterwards we face City in the Premier League, and then we face Karabakh yet again, this time on Tuesday in St. James's Park. But first of all, Wednesday, we are traveling to Azerbaijan. Not a nice place to travel to when you have already such a congested calendar like we do, but also, let's be completely honest here, no excuses. We are better than Karabakh. We have a much better squad than Karabakh. We need to go through to the next round to face either Chelsea or Barcelona. How do we do that? By not having them surprise us. I think we've done pretty well in the Champions League by not getting surprised by some unknown teams. I think PSV and Union, Bilbao, Benfica, we handled those games really, really maturely. That's exactly the kind of performance we're going to be needing from our players against Karabakh yet again. Because again, like I said, this is an annoying away day. So this will probably play on the players' fitness, on the players' minds, on the players' eagerness to perform. But we have to get over that. We have to show us from our A side and get through to the next round, because that's ultimately still the goal for this season. I mean, in the Champions League, the goal has to be to get through to the next round and then ideally hope to get Barcelona, because I do think against Barca, we very much stand a chance. In the FA Cup, it all depends on the draw, on who we face next, but there are still teams like Wrexham, for example, and West Ham who are still in the FA Cup, so there are very, very possible draws, shall we say. And then there's the Premier League, which, like we discussed, we still have an opportunity to finish in those European spots. Only one win in a game week where Bournemouth and Everton drop points gets us in those European spots. So there's still everything to play for this season. And after what had been a string of negative results, these two positive results were probably exactly what I and a lot of other Newcastle fans needed to get some renewed optimism for this season, for the remainder of this season. So those are my thoughts on both games and on the future or the near future of this season, the end of this season. Now let's listen to Kyle's thoughts on both games. He did a pretty comprehensive review himself of about 15 minutes, and afterwards, I think that's enough for today's episode. So, Kyle, over to you.
Cheers, Ian. So yeah, it ended Newcastle 3, Aston Villa 1 at Villa Park, a place that over the years we haven't been great, but the last few times we've went there, we've only won one, only lost one of our last three. And then obviously adding to that, a brilliant 3-1 win over the weekend. So yeah, let's just jump straight into the thoughts on this game because there's quite a lot to unpack. Um, which I'm sure Ian will be covering in most parts of this episode. Um, but yeah, starting off with the team, I thought the team was I honestly thought like Leo Shahar would have got a start and stuff, but um, Eddie went for quite a strong team, um, which given his press conference notes saying how important the FA Cup was, and how important the FA Cup is, there is an opportunity there, and we'll feel it a strong side, which is always a good thing. Um, it came off the back of Bruno being out for like 6 to 8 weeks, so it's a big chance for people to step up in that midfield, and I feel like there was a couple of really good performances yesterday to really show that there is players willing to step up in the absence of Bruno, which is always something. Um, but yeah, the team was quite strong. Nick Waltermore playing in the 10 behind William Asula. I think Asula was brought in simply because Vissa was out for knock. But it's just one of them. The way Vissa's playing at the minute, anyway, I don't think he was particularly missed in this one. But yeah, we started really well. In all fairness, I think we started quite strong, and then the first decision goes against we. This will be a common theme throughout my review of this anyway, where the referee was just a fucking arsehole throughout. Um, and it gets worse, but the linesman misses three or four players, Aston Villa players, offside as the free kick goes through. Um, for Tammy Abraham to score his first Aston Villa goal for a long time as he's just re-signed for them. But this is the first major decision that the fuck up on the officials, and yeah, just he's over a foot offside, and it's just like, especially with the decision that went against with on Wednesday, with last Wednesday with Joe Willock needing a trim to stay on side, and apparently the 5 centimeter rule not existing in this instance, to give Willock some leeway to get his goal against Spurs. But yeah, the first of many decisions, and I think it gets worse as you get along. Even though we went 1-0 down, I thought we were still the better side, and we controlled the game quite well. I thought the midfield battle we were winning quite comfortably. Jacob Ramsey playing well against his former club, Tonali playing well, and in that midfield as well. But yeah, it was a strange old first half. I was particularly frustrated with Jacob Murphy. I just didn't think he offered anything. Like, I think the only things he offered in the game was the two fouls that were contentious in the game, which brings us on to the second one. The Lucas Digne. foul. I mean, I've seen this given, I've seen it not given. Obviously not given in this case, but yeah, this is another one where it's just like this probably should have been a red card given how high the studs were, and I mean, he showed his fucking leg, how high up the studs were, and it came to something when even Villa fans online were like saying we're getting away with one here, and that was before we get the other decisions that were made in the game. Um, like Lucas Digney shouldn't have been on the field for the one that happened later, which I'll get on to. But yeah, just crazy fucking refereeing. And then a Stonewall penalty. Lewis Hall just kicked in the box and nothing given. If you 40 dive, why not book Hall? Like fucking insane decision again, and it just felt honestly like going like as this game went on, it felt like we were being fucking robbed in well, I'd say broad daylight, but it was quite kind of an evening scene, wasn't it? But yeah, it felt like we were getting robbed. I mean, the amount of decisions going against with Villa were in the lead because of a contentious decision. There should have been down to 10 men, and we should have had a penalty. You could have even argued we could have had two. Um, Not only Hall going down, but I'm trying to remember who what the other one was. There's that many bad decisions. I'm like forgetting like the smaller ones, which in normal games will probably be contentious decisions. But this referee, honestly, and the big one before half time, um, the ball goes through on a counter attack. Bizit, as Unai Emery calls him, just decides to fucking um proper Vinnie Jones tackle on Murphy as he was going through, goal scoring opportunity, straight red. That's probably the one decision he got fucking right in the whole half. And even then at half time, I still put a post up, the Chris Kavanagh masterclass and some of the things he gave against were, um, even little things like Walter Mara getting absolutely like just wrestled every time he got near the ball and the referee not protecting him. Just the little things, but the big things as well. He got majorly wrong in the first half, and I'm just thinking, what the fuck is this referee? But as you know, it gets worse. We're getting to the second half, and this genuinely, this is the worst decision I've seen in football. It's rotten. It's fucking awful. Like Kieran Trippier puts a ball into the box. It hits Digny's arm. He's about 3 foot in the box, and he gives it as a free kick. Like the amount of negligence that has to go into this. Like genuinely, I was still ranting about it yesterday to like to um to friends and stuff, and it's just like, what the fuck is this decision? Like the amount of incompetence that has to take place for this to even happen is unbelievable. Like the ball goes into the box, it hits Digney on the arm. Okay, Chris Kavanagh is about 20 yards from the ball when this happens. He misses it. Okay, stupid decision, but he misses it. But the fucking linesman, like, how the fuck does the linesman miss it? Like, it's about 20 yards in front of him, like directly in front of him. If he can't see the lines on the field, to help the referees differentiate whether it's in the box or out the box to be a penalty kick or a free kick. Those lines that make the penalty box and the lines that make the football pitch. If he can't see them, he probably shouldn't be refereeing. He probably should go to Specsavers to get his eyes fucking tested because he can't see. Like the the how bad this decision is. It's absolutely insane. Like I kind of fathom it. Like two officials getting this so wrong to where it it's blatantly in the box, and they're like, oh yeah, it's handball, but it's outside. Like, what the fuck? Like, what's VAR done to these people? These referees? Like, it's proper. like it's made them mind-numbingly worse than what they were, and they were bad. Like there's a reason people that VAR was brought in, and it was because the referees were having shocker after shocker, week on week. And you take VAR for the FA Cup, and like there's good examples of it. Like when we played Sunderland in the cup a couple of years ago, no VAR, and it let the tackles go and let that passion up a little bit more. But fuck me, this is just this is why VAR needs to be in football. Like I know there's like for and against with it. Like it takes a lot of time with these referees, but they need all the help they can get because they don't even know where the fucking penalty lines are anymore. Like genuinely, I've watched football for a long time, and I've seen some decisions that are just absolutely awful, terrible. This one takes the cake. This is the worst decision I've ever seen as a fan. It's it is especially definitely as a Newcastle fan. I mean, the only thing I can think of is that can match it is something along the lines of when Sheffield United played Villa in COVID and the referees forgot to turn goal line technology on, and it ended up keeping Villa up and sending Sheffield United down. I'm sure I said Wednesday there, but if I've offended anybody from um of a supporting from a Sheffield kind of place, I don't know why you'd watch or listen to a Newcastle podcast. But anyway, I'll move on. Like that's the only decision I can think of which is worse, and the only reason that decision happened all those years ago was because the fuckers forgot to turn it on. Like VAR needs to stay in football, but it needs overhauled. I honestly think if you can make it as semi-automated as possible, where it's not in human control, because the humans involved are just so incompetent. Like genuinely, if it had came out that Chris Kavanagh received a brown envelope before the start of the game, I would not be surprised. It was that bad. The decisions he got wrong were that bad. Like it wasn't just one major error either. The one that I've went into, but there's three or four, man, where Villa should have been down to 9 men in the first half. Newcastle should have been level at half time, 0-0, and we should have had a penalty, which arguably should have put 1-0, but we're going 1-0 down. And it's testament to the players like remaining in the because this season away from home we've been absolutely shocking, and for things to go against with the way that game did, like to come out and still win that game, even though I don't care Villa were down to 10 players, some some of the fucking decisions were absolutely insane. But we managed to score from this free kick anyway, which is just as well, because fucking hell, like, honestly, I could go on all day about how bad that free kick was, like, that decision was. But anyway, like, the ball goes into the box. Tonali, brilliant finish. I mean, it takes a bit of a deflection, but we deserved a bit of luck. I mean, how we, and it puts us back into the game, and I think it puts the momentum right on now because we'll go on to dominate the game after this, and Villa have a couple of breaks on the counter, but they don't make anything of them. Um, they were struggling with the 10 men. Should have been 9, but they were struggling with the 10 men. We brought on Gordon, and we brought on Alanga, which I think really stretched the pitch a lot more and made it difficult for Villa to deal with. And then the second goal, Sandro again. This is a beauty. Honestly, what a goal this is. Um, just an arrow from outside the box. Beautiful goal. And from scoring none over the whole season, he gets two within like 20 minutes, and it puts we in the lead. And once we got the lead for once away from home, it never looked like we're losing it. We never looked back. Um, and Villa looked out of sorts. Really, they just didn't have any ideas. They looked like a beaten team once it went down to 11 men because the fucking 12th was sent off and visited half time. Um, and then yeah, we'll get the third goal later on. Walter Mara. I mean, I could go on about this as well. Like, even the pundits on the coverage were having a go at him for not playing as a number nine. Um, Danny Murphy on commentary, who's the most boring cunt you could ever have on commentary. Um, yeah, like it. They were having a go at him, but he was playing in that number 10 role, and he was being a facilitator and a creator. Um, and he managed to get his goal. I think it's been a long time coming, and well deserved. But yeah, I think it's a tidy finish. I mean, Villa try and play out from the back late on with 10 men. It wasn't the smartest of ideas. Willock intercepts the ball, and it falls into the path of Walter Mara, who finishes nice and calmly from that against Martinez to make it 3-1. And yeah, job's done. But we'll go from there, and it's a really good result. Like, Aston Villa are a really good side. I mean, they're outside contenders for the Premier League this season, and we're seeing exactly what they can do at St James's just last month. So yeah, it's a brilliant result for Newcastle. As we'll go on to the next round, it's still unconfirmed who we'll have, but who would I like to have? I mean, looking at who's left and stuff, as long as we're like avoid a Man City away, which is what I'm fearing we're gonna get, but um, I I think Sunderland at home. I think that's the one. Like, especially given the shit since December with them, and having another chance to put them to the sword. Like, I think that would be a good draw to have. Another one would probably be um a home draw of any description. Really, I'd take a home draw. I think if we've been away last round, getting more in front of St James's again and going from there. But aye, that's my take on um the Villa game. And yeah, back to you, Ian, and hopefully you can try and describe what the white lines are on the pitch for this fucking referee, because my god.
And that is some fantastic stuff by you, Kyle. I want to thank everybody at home for listening or for watching. If you watch this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, hype the video, leave a comment, share it with your friends. If you watched or listen to this on Spotify, please leave a five-star review. Again, share this with your friends would be massively, massively appreciated. Check out Magpie 24/7 on all other social media platforms, and we would like to see you in the next episode. Have a good one.